Hi, Stories Channel here.
Today, I'm going to explain a drama, mystery, sci-fi film called I Think We're Alone Now. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. In a small town, Dell breaks into a house and takes all the batteries that he can find. Before leaving, he cleans up and takes a photo of the residence out of a frame. Outside, he marks the street in front of the house with spray paint. Several other homes along the street have been marked to indicate that he's already entered the houses. Later, Dell drives to a library and marks the house he visited on the town's map while having coffee. The next day, Dell breaks into another house and finds 2 dead bodies. He gets a bedsheet from the bedroom and uses it to wrap the corpses. After cleaning up, he takes a photo out of the frame and loads the bodies to his truck. He then drives to a field and drags the bodies to an empty grave. After filling the grave, Dell goes fishing in the lake before going back to the library. After a meal, he lies down on his bed to watch an old movie on his laptop. That night, Dell is awakened by a loud explosion. When he looks outside, he's surprised to see fireworks in the distance. In the morning, Dell goes to town and hears a car alarm sounding off. When he approaches the vehicle, he notices a gun in the back seat. In the driver's seat, he finds an unconscious woman. Soon, the young woman wakes up and finds herself in a bedroom with a bandage on her head. She tries to get out, but the door is locked from the outside. When she calls out, Dell asks if there's anybody else with her. When she says that there's no one else, Dell asks the woman why she's still alive. The woman just asks him the same question. Dell asks her why she has a gun, so she explains that she brought it as a precaution and quips that the corpses could reanimate. The woman urges Dell to unlock the door, so he instructs her to count backward from 100 before opening it. When she agrees, Dell informs her that he's prepared a car for her and says she must leave town. After Dell unlocks the door, the woman starts counting down, but she immediately opens it before Dell can leave. When she gets outside, she asks Dell why she can't smell the rotten corpses. Dell explains that he's already buried them. Dell hands her the keys to the car, but she tells him that she wants to stay. As Dell walks away, she asks him if he's not alarmed that the human race will go extinct. Dell just ignores her and wishes her good luck. Later, the woman observes Dell while he's fishing. The woman then follows him back to the library and offers to help him clear the dead bodies in town. During a meal, the woman asks Dell his theory about the sudden death of everyone around them. Dell says it doesn't matter to him. When she asks if he was ever lonely, Dell remarks that he was lonely when all the people in town were still alive. The woman realizes that Dell isn't interested in having company, so she decides to leave. When she gets to the car, Dell knocks on her window and asks her where she's going. The woman discloses that she's headed to Niagara Falls because she wants to see all the landmarks. She asks Dell why he followed her, so he explains that he might change his mind about having some company, but he fears that she would be long gone by then. Dell asks her if she wants to stay for a trial period. The woman gets out of the car and introduces herself as Grace. The next day, she unpacks her things in the same house where Dell brought her to after the accident. While driving around for one day, he notices Grace on her way to the part of town that he hasn't cleaned. When Grace prepares to take the corpse out of the house, Dell stresses that he has a specific way of cleaning up. Grace asks him to teach her, so he tells her to find batteries because it's the most important commodity that the dead can give them. When he starts cleaning up the fridge, Grace is puzzled because no one would go inside the house to see it anyways. Dell tries to explain the concept of entropy to her. Grace knows it has to do with chaos, so Dell elaborates that he wants to reduce as much chaos as he can. Later, Dell searches for Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace and tells Grace that the resident, Mrs. Young, owes the library $700 worth of late fees. When Grace finds the book, Dell is disappointed to find that Mrs. Young had stretched the leather. While Dell clears the leaves outside, Grace notices the empty picture frame. As Dell is about to bury Mrs. Young's body, Grace asks him if he will say something because they're burying a human being. Dell, however, points out that Grace herself didn't say something for every dead person that she saw. Grace tells him that she held her breath for 10 seconds when she saw a dead body. So, Dell agrees to do it before burying Mrs. Young. While looking for Dell at the library, Grace ends up in his room, but he isn't there. Grace notices a picture of a family on his desk, so she decides to open the drawer. Inside, she finds numerous photos of the previous residents of the town. One day, Grace finds a small dog inside a house, so she takes it back to the library. Dell is allergic to the dog, but he allows her to keep it. Dell wouldn't help her come up with a name, so Grace just calls it Dog. During dinner, Grace mentions that she had a goldfish that lived for 2 years. She thinks that was a long time, but Dell informs her that goldfish can live up to 25 years. Grace refuses to believe this. When Grace gets up in the morning, Grace looks briefly at the scar on her nape before meeting Dell at the library. While Dell is rearranging books, Grace finds the dog chewing on a magazine. Dell offers to take the dog out so that Grace can clean up, but the dog bites him. Later, Grace stops by Dell's room to help him stitch up the dog bite. The following day, Grace wakes him up to tell him that the dog is gone. Dell confesses that he let it out because it had to urinate. Grace is upset about his confession, so Dell promises to find the dog. When they get back to the library, Grace enters Dell's room and drops his collection of photos on the table. She points out that Dell doesn't know any of the people in the pictures, and he treats them like any other object. Grace then recounts that her father died on the toilet while her mom died on the elliptical machine. Dell leans away from her when she kneels beside him. She confesses that she was with the boy when other people died. She stresses that she had people who cared for her while Dell was alone. Before leaving the room, Grace takes the photos and throws them at Dell. The next day, Dell visits Grace at her house and takes her to a greenhouse. He tells her that there are still a lot of houses that need to be cleared. Dell asks for help, but he tells her that she shouldn't feel obligated. After clearing more houses in the neighborhood, they find a pair of CB radios. As Grace wanders around on her bike, she comes across a house that's not on the map. So, she calls Dell on the radio. When Dell arrives, he tells her that she's not supposed to be there. Grace realizes that they're inside his house, so she offers to help him clean it. Dell initially refuses, but he reconsiders and tells her to start cleaning. After putting the body in the grave, Dell and Grace observe a moment of silence before covering it. Inside the car, Grace tries to tell Dell about the place that she came from, but instead of telling him, she pauses for a moment, then kisses him. The following day, Dell wakes up in her room and hears a man laughing downstairs, so he takes Grace's gun. When he gets downstairs, he finds a man and a woman with Grace in the dining room. The man introduces himself as Patrick, and the woman is his wife, Violet. When Patrick refers to Grace as his daughter, he notices the confusion in Dell's face. Patrick asks Grace why she never told Dell about them. Patrick prompts Grace to tell them who they are, so she confesses that Patrick and Violet are her parents. Violet urges Grace to pack her things because Patrick has to get back to Palm Springs for his golf tournament. When Patrick starts talking about the other men he plays with, he realizes that Dell doesn't know about the other survivors. He chides Grace for not letting Dell know that there are thousands of survivors. Patrick discloses that they put up signs on every highway across the country to point people to their commune. When Dell leaves the house, Grace follows him and tells him that Violet and Patrick are not really her parents. She then reveals that she was just paired up with them when she arrived in California. Dell expresses his dismay that Grace lied to him about being the only people around, so she explains that she was afraid that he wouldn't let her stay. Grace begs Dell to take her with him. She holds onto the steering wheel to prevent him from leaving, but Dell forcefully takes her hand off and drives away. As Grace starts packing, Violet begs her to come back with them and tells her that she can't do it alone. Violet says that they have to try their best to be a real family. Later, Patrick stops by the library and asks Dell for audiobooks, but Dell ignores him. Patrick expresses his fascination with Dell and tells him that they could use someone with his level of intelligence back in California. He reveals that the commune has doctors who discovered ways to harness the human brain. Dell is uninterested in anything he says, so Patrick writes his address down on a book so Dell can find them if he has a change of heart. After Patrick leaves, Dell puts the book on a shelf. As the three leave for California, Grace tearfully looks out the window as they drive away from the library. After a few days, Dell stops by his former home and throws rocks at it in his frustration. When he gets back to the library, Dell turns on the CB radio in the hopes of hearing Grace's voice. One day, Dell goes through his photo collection and recounts what he knows about the people in the images. When he could no longer endure his loneliness, Dell searches for the book that Patrick used to write his address. Dell eventually finds the address and drives to California in his truck. On the way, he comes across a bridge blocked by cars occupied by dead people, so he takes his supplies to find another vehicle. After driving for a while, he changes his vehicle again when he comes across a red convertible. When he gets close to his destination, he suddenly stops to stare at the lights of the houses in the distance. Upon reaching Patrick's house, Dell watches Patrick and Violet from the glass door. Violet notices someone outside, so Dell hides when she looks around. Violet doesn't see anyone, so she tells Patrick that she'll check on Grace. Patrick asks her to check the sensor on her head because it's always coming loose. Dell goes back to his car and waits until Patrick and Violet fall asleep. As soon as they turn off the lights in the living room, Dell takes his gun and breaks into the house. When Dell gets inside Grace's room, he finds her sleeping while connected to an ECG monitor. Dell notices the stitches on Grace's nape when she turns around. He wakes her up and tells her that he's sorry for allowing Patrick to take her. On their way out, Patrick sees them and tells Dell that Grace should be back in bed. When Dell asks what Patrick was doing to her, he discloses that he's getting rid of her negative feelings. He contends that they're wiping people's emotions, such as anger, sadness, and guilt, because they believe it's not fair for people to remember what happened in the past. As Patrick continues explaining his motivations, Grace suddenly shoots him. Violet comes out and looks at Patrick's body without any sign of grief. She tells Grace that she had a daughter once. Before leaving the room, Violet informs them that they can use the Windex under the sink to clean up. In the morning, Grace walks out of the house carrying her goldfish. As they drive away, Dell observes the town's cheerful residents as they start their day. Grace remarks that she's sorry for shooting Patrick. However, she takes it back when Dell asks if she's really remorseful. When she asks if it's okay to not feel bad about the incident, Dell doesn't respond. As the convertible's roof retracts, Dell smiles at her and blasts rock music on the stereo before driving away.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.